Alright, well, I think we're gonna do this. 921 cards. Love Through Ice. Yeah, apparently that card is just as rare as House of Mirrors, according to the little weightings thing I noticed, but I feel like that might be wrong. I've gotten that card a couple times. That might just be the second time this league. Plugged into the map, it would say that right here. It would say area has 100% more divination cards or whatever, but I wouldn't actually drop more divination cards. Not significantly more anyway, because most of them are coming from diviner's boxes, which already have 100% weighting for divination cards. This has already been that's already been known for a long time. Dude, 1,500 cards. That was a lot. But at least there was a second button. You do have to. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Technically, you do press the skill, but oh my god. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bro. 902 cards. Sephiroth's back again. 1,600 cards. Yeah, maybe, because the scuffed one there. Should be over 1,500 cards. I think it might be like 1,800 or 1,900. 2,021 or 2,128 cards. Oh, For Choking Guilt. All right, that is a top 20 card, but it's one of the not very, again, it's one of those extraordinarily rare cards based on the kind of, you know, content and value that I'm bringing out. Oh, shit. That's a familiar one. All right. Big card. Cheater. Still not super valuable, but one of the big ones for sure. And that's the one I dropped at the end of my farm last time. All right, here we go. Hell, I mean, if we can do that like 15 times again. Hey, wait, where's my conversions? What happened to my conversions? Light. Oh, Calandra's Touch. Whoa. Unexpected. The number of diviners boxes opened was 16 on 330 quant. This should be, yeah, it should be over 2,000 cards. 2,348! Boom! 20 fortunates? What? Come on. 20 fortunates. 1,400 cards. Here comes 4 fortunates, guys. There it is. Came a little later than I thought. You were right. He called it a few maps ago. No. Hey, alright, well, I mean, one brother's stash is worth almost a full divine in this league, so. What's going on, guys? Who here likes some divination card farming? I know I like some div card farming. Heck, if you look at my channel, the history, half the videos on there probably have something to do with divination card farming. I'm very excited to bring you what I believe is the best divination card farm of the league. It might even be the best boxes farm of the league. And while this is still a 3-way divination farm, like what I mentioned, you know, in the very first video of this league, pilfering, Eldritch Minion packs, which were introduced in Arch Nemesis, great. That's one avenue. Then we have brand new to 3.25 scried maps. Okay, we're not just relegated to the Crimson Temple. We can do whatever map layout we want, the best layout possible, in which case Mausoleum, because it's the easy boss and it cannot spawn boss altars. Still great layout too, very short and can fit a lot of boxes in there. And so we can scry whatever map we want on there. In this case, I have done, at this point, Val Pyramid for the Unrequited Love. So the EV on this card is looking really, really high right now. I was using Defiled Cathedral for Apothecary, but the Mage Blood has gone down in value a bit, so switched over to Unrequited Love. That's avenue number 2, and then avenue number 3 is the Diviner's Boxes. And Diviner's Boxes have never been in a better place. When I first started playing the game, Diviner's Boxes existed, but they've always taken a backseat to whatever you're doing. If you're Apothecary farming in Crimson Temple, you got a Diviner's Box, but you were really enraged Strongbox farming. You were going for the monsters, for the kills. It's different now. And especially this league, 3.26, this is one of the best states we've ever seen divination card farming. The fact that we got 3 different ways to farm them, and the fact that rolling boxes is better than it's ever been. The combination of the Atlas, which that was introduced back in Arch Nemesis League as well. This note here, these right here, the dupe chance. The Scarab rework of 3.25, giving us all these really impactful Scarabs, including the Pilfering Scarab, and then the massive quality of life of rolling boxes without having to actually open your inventory. It just made this strat incredible, and so that's why, you know, I'm a big believer in this strat. But, well, the numbers matter probably more than any of that, so we'll have to see how much currency it makes in the end, which is why I bring you to the last point, which will be how we're normalizing results. But I guess I do need to talk about the maps before we do that real quick. We're going to get started with the Atlas, and there is a lot to go over because the prep work for this one's a little bit more intense than a lot of strats, but here we go. Okay, kind of similar story. We had the low investment version of the strat, then we had the containment tier 16s like I just mentioned, and now we're going all the way to 16.5s. Now here's an interesting thing. Empyrean Gaming did this strat recently, and it's definitely made it a little bit more popular, and I think he had better RNG than I did, at least as far as my last video. And you know, it was his cringe versus based thing, and he came out with based on this strat for good reason, because it's a great strat. But one thing he didn't do that I think I would recommend to you guys, especially now that Mausoleum tier 16.5s are worth 1 divine apiece apparently, is go concealed logistics. Okay, so this is going to allow you to get some, not Arcanist boxes, but some cartographer boxes and dupe the maps out of there. I will, before releasing this video, have already released kind of a lead-up video to give you a better idea on just how potent this is. We're going to take a look at a highlight, or will have taken a look at a highlight video featuring containment of this strat here. So this is kind of 2 adjacent strats together. We're farming maps because now we don't just have tier 17s, we have 16.5s, which are, I guess, our core at this time. Of course, these 2 points are really important. Can't really afford to take these points here with the Arcanist boxes because it just eats into Diviners too much. But we can go ahead and get away with duping maps and going for that route. And this season, this league especially, maps are premium, and right now Mausoleum tier 16.5 is evidently a divine apiece, and we're going to have to factor that into the calculation. And if I can give you a way to self-sustain the maps on this strat, which I think this will just about do, that'll make a lot of you happy, I know for sure. So we'll take singular focus, and we'll take all of the map nodes except for these here. I just can't really fit them in. We're going to basically ignore Scarabs completely except for this one. You do want Remarkable Relics anytime you do a containment strat because as you know, strong boxes in general can force roll Scarabs, types of Scarabs, whether Divination or Titanic or anything. It just says it on the box. And those are subject to rarity tiers based on, you know, this Atlas Notable. So you really want to take this point if possible. It would be nice to take Trapping Carapaces. We are running ambush on the map device, so we'll be having an elevated chance to get containment Scarabs. Either way, maybe you can fit these points in, maybe not, but definitely do recommend Remarkable Relics anytime you do a containment strat, even if you're not farming Scarabs at all. It's just smart to do. Eater of Worlds is still present here. I'm going to show you guys how to spawn the influence and get virtually full value out of the influence. It's pretty tough to do on containment farms. It has to do with enforcing some shrines on the map as well as invasive adversaries. It really helps with that. We're going to, of course, take advantage of all the increased effect modifiers maps, quant wheel a little bit here, some shrine stuff, but trying to, you know, not take wasted nodes too much. And then we're forcing a Delirium Mirror. That has a lot to do with getting the influence to spawn. So, yeah, a lot going on here with the Atlas, but anyway, that'll make a little bit more sense as we show the first map. Now, as you can see, the inventory is quite full of a lot of things here. We got a lot of Scarab rolling materials, or not Scarab rolling, box rolling materials. and I will probably use almost all of these. I've done this enough to know this is about what I need to do it. We'll look at the investment cost and where all this is coming from in a minute, but yeah, that's kind of an added thing here. As far as the Scarabs are concerned, Scarabs and maps, you really have to run these Scarabs. A lot of strats, the Alpha strat, for example, has a very flexible Scarab slot. A lot of strategies have flexible Scarab slots. Not this one. You really have to run these 5 exactly. They all have a limit of 1, and they're all doing something really important. All right, so the maps, they are priority quant. That's it. Okay, the map rolls are actually easier than normal. However, because they're so easy, I am pretty restrictive on this. I think I averaged somewhere around 50 chaos per map rolling these, even though the only thing I cared about is quant. So we're just using quant chisels. The reason is because there's nothing else that really matters for increasing the number of divination card drops, especially through diviner's boxes, which out of the 3 ways to get cards, that's going to be the predominant one for sure. And, you know, quant's going to be good for all loot, basically. And so you'll notice the quant's very high on these maps. I think the very highest one I have is this one with 198% quant with 6 modifiers. You might have thought that wasn't even possible, but these are the mods that made it happen. And so yes, it can roll this high. My minimum number is 160. I got a regex down there. I think it mandates like 130 without chisels, and then you may exalt slam or something to try and hit that 160 after chisels. And you may or may not want to be as restrictive as this. Okay, it definitely does require some chaos, but it's really important to get that quant roll as high as you can, and given the fact that it synergizes with all of these increased effect modifiers, of course. All right, investment cost here. Let's see. We've already kind of pulled the map out, but we got a total of 100 divines per map because, again, the mausoleum map's worth 100 divines. Not sure why. Map rolling, 50 chaos per, puts it around 27 divines there. Box rolling, there's 105 divines worth of stuff in here for box rolling, approximately. Scarab fees is almost exclusively the containment scarab. Every other scarab is really cheap. Pilfering's all the way down to like 5 C apiece right now. So they're like 1 C scarabs, basically, aside from containment. And then Keurig map device is 1.5. Total investment costs almost 400 divines for 100 maps. We got 387.5 divines. All right, here we go. Now we got the normalization of cards. So this is going to be an extra subsection to the video that's normally not included. This is something I used to do a long time ago when trying to figure out the apothecary drop rate, and we're going to do that now. There's a lot of extra work needed to be done, but this is going to be necessary to get to the bottom of how good the strat is in just 100 maps, because otherwise I'd have to run thousands upon thousands of maps to get a sense of how many House of Mirrors I should drop, how many Unrequited Loves I should drop, how many apothecaries should I drop, you know, because those cards are all eligible to drop in here, but you can't really expect those cards in, you know, even just 100 maps necessarily. So what I've done is I've taken this website here, which is courtesy of the Prohibited Library. It is a resource, statistical gathering resource of a lot of very trusted names in the community. And we used to use this spreadsheet, actually. This may look familiar to some of you who are familiar with my older content, to get a lockdown on the weightings. They've been opening stack decks for ages, and normally these weightings don't really change. We also have an algorithm crack on Faustus with the currency exchange and how much the gold fees are, which help with this. I'm not exactly 100% sure if that's playing a role in here or not, but at the very least, this is just an insurmountable amount of data that's been collected to determine the weightings of such cards. Reign of Chaos is on the very top, and I'm going to be tracking a card that's very convenient for me that I would pick up anyway. Fairly common in this strat is Chaotic Disposition with a weighting of 4,205, and I'm going to be cross-referencing that with the 20 most valuable cards in the game as they are listed over here. Okay, just looked at the top 20 all the way down to 7 years bad luck from House of Mirrors. Some of these we will not count, however, because they don't get registered here. They're actually so effing rare that they may not even show up, although I'm pretty sure House of Mirrors is more rare than any of them with a weighting of 1.4. Still got some that don't even show up, like Damnation and Father's Love, Price of Devotion, the Insane Cat. These cards do exist, but they're just crazy rare. And so I'll look at the weightings of these and I'll determine how much value I got by cross-referencing the value of the cards versus the weightings of the cards. And then we can tell at the very end, based on how many Chaotic dispositions I drop, that will paint a much fuller picture about how much value I get, you know, on average from these super crazy high value rare cards with such a huge variance that there's really just no other way to tell. So this is the best way to do it. I think, for anyone and everyone. It's way more complex than just tracking gambler cards and cross-referencing it with the apothecary. So I'm doing it with 20 different cards, but it can be done, and that's what we're going to do. And so that's how we're going to figure out how good the strat is. Now, we go on to the first map. Now, of course, I'll put some more in here soon, but we're going to pick Ambush. We're going to run this crazy juicer, volatile cores. There can be some really hard mods on here. I'm still not running like ailment avoidance and stuff. I usually don't run reduce extra damage from crits. These bosses can be crazy tanky. And guys, I'm not familiar with any character build in the game that is more tailor-made for this strat than the one I'm running. It was basically one of the big reasons why I ran this strat, or ran this build, was because it was so unbelievably good at the strat. We make the boss really dangerous, but we can use an easy boss and get away with a sort of glass cannon playstyle while taking advantage of Oath of Winter, shutting down the boss from being able to do anything anyway, and even with Headhunter buff stacking, potentially just be complete overkill even on a 2,000 plus card boss. We'll no doubt get at least a few maps in here where there's an excess of 2,000 cards. Hell, we might even hit a record 3,000 cards at some point on this farm. We'll see. That will have been in the highlights if it's there. Welcome to the first map showcase. Okay, so very important how you actually run this map to get most value. We want to spawn the influence as fast as possible. To do that, I don't kill anything. I also don't run past the mirror. That's an invasive adversaries pack. It's the only thing that could even be outside the map right now. I don't really want to kill it still. I want to find the shrine. Alright, gotta find the shrine. When you find the shrine, kill the mobs near the shrine, it opens up the influence. Another good idea to kill this guy. If you can, this pauses the mirror even more, I believe. Divination card minion options are good here because they will also dupe in the end. Rarity, I don't really care about. I mean, this is like the complete opposite of a uniques farm. And don't be like me and forget to actually put in your box rollings things because you're gonna need that. I forgot to do that. I always forget to do that when I first start doing this strat again. Okay, so I do it something like this. This is enough to roll just about everything. And now let's get back to business. So the mirror is paused a little bit because I killed the merc. Okay, I like to just alch orb all these. We get extra value that normally that wouldn't even be worth opening your inventory for to hit, but that, again, in addition, this league, the simple just alching a box that is white is easy to go. Now that's a divine orb that didn't dupe because I'm not running Arcanus dupes. Some people may wish to run Arcanus dupes. You will spawn fewer diviner boxes if you do that, but you know, if you don't want to drop just one mirror from an Arcanus box, if that scares the heck out of you, then you know, whatever. All right, Quant Altar, that's what we want to see, the only one that matters. Even div dupes don't do anything here. Opening each box pauses the mirror further, which is a good idea to do if you can. Open some of the boxes. I'm also monitoring for cartographer or diviner boxes if I see them. We can run a map and get 0. We're going to lose currency if we get 0 diviner boxes, but most maps will spawn with at least a few. We got one here. Alright, I gotta scour it, do this. I can do all of this without opening my inventory. I'm rolling for percent. A high percent roll goes up to 105 here, courtesy of one of the Scarabs. This is nice. I don't want to have to blow a bunch of Exalts. Exalts are crazy expensive right now. I'm going to be rolling Chaos Heavy at this point in the league. So that's really good to hit there. That's a good box. You can get the flat number up to 14. It's nice to combine that with percent. It's not going to happen every time unless you're paying an obscene amount of currency rolling boxes. Not recommended. Yeah. So you can see I kind of started at the back of the map and I'm working my way up. I'm not opening the diviner box because I really want to try to get any quant altars I can. I'll make one quick pass back through again after kind of clearing here. Right now my goal is to just open other boxes, roll diviner and cartographer boxes, and then open all the eldritch minions to get the altars if I can. It's kind of, I guess, 3 things I'm doing right now. And because I keep opening the boxes periodically, that mirror has no chance to move. It's really important because Eldritch packs need an anchor from which they spawn. They need monsters up and alive, and that's what the mirror is there for, the deli mirror. Alright, this is kind of second best type of box roll, just flat number really high. It's not as good as percent, but it's okay. Two diviner boxes right here. I almost got so goo-goo-eyed I got killed by a volatile core just about there. You love to see it. +1 chest level is completely worthless, so usually I roll over that. Here's a really good one. This got percent and flat with an additional divination roll. That's really nice. I sometimes exalt here, but exalts are too expensive to use. I'd have to use 2 probably finish that out. Percent's good. Okay, nice. Got lucky there. So we got 4 boxes so far. They're good. Got to watch out for that Ice Nova. There's another reason why having a really fast character is nice. A lot of players run tanky characters still will die off to Ice Nova sometimes. So having a really fast bow character is quite nice for this. I almost regexed off monster AoE because it's so annoying how enormous that AoE range is. But I decided not to. Here we go. We got a cartographer. Notice how I just got 1 of these. Okay, they're very rare. Now, I always go for percent here. And maybe plus... It's like +3 additional items. Not really sure. As time goes on, I take this more seriously than before. Here, this is probably fine. Let's go ahead and see what we get out of this box. 6 maps. Now, that could have been a duped Sanctuary. Sanctuary, this is a great map to do right now, too. Sanctuary is the only tier 17 that's really worth a lot right now. So even Fortress has dropped off. See, I guess a lot of people are doing, like, high-end farms on Sanctuary. So Mausoleum is giga premium right now. Okay, basically now we're just going through the process of opening the Diviners. And so I like to count. With this strat, and the way I'm running this, with a quant number like, 383, and the way I'm rolling these boxes, each box is going to give me an excess of 100 cards. An excess of 100. Probably closer to 150 cards at this point with that much quant. Actually, yeah, for sure, this map in particular, because this map was insanely rolled quant. Maybe almost 200 cards per box. I'm really hoping for the reopens. We have 31% chance to reopen. An extra 15 from the Scarab. Double Diviners. Yikes. Okay, I got 0 reopens, I think, on any Diviner box or Cartographer. That's unlucky. Unlucky. Yeah, I think that that does it here. I got the dreaded reduced action speed per actions taken, but I have a Merc that has a garb of ephemeral, so that's okay. At this point, I typically remove the delirium. I don't really use the petals for anything. I sometimes use it on the boss if it seems like it would have any value at all. So we'll see. I mean, I only opened 4 boxes. This boss is probably gonna have like 600, 700 cards anyway. Or 886, my goodness. Looks like its monster action can't be reduced. Is that what this is? Ah, yeah. Monster's action cannot be modified below base value. Usually I'd be freezing him constantly. So that's another mod that's a little dangerous for me, but he's still technically frozen. And we got no good cards, really. No good cards out of 886. So that's pretty insane, right? I got over 200 cards per box opened there. And, generally speaking, I'm fairly happy if I get 100 cards per box speaking with other versions of the strat. So this dramatically elevated strategy here with so many more cards. And the boss is going to be hard. You really do have to have a particular type of character, or it's going to take you a long time to whittle this boss down otherwise. That can be a bit of a problem and eat into the time, so you don't really want that too bad. But especially with Warden, even kind of a halfway scuffed Warden build can still freeze this boss and get away with get away with murder in that sense. Just stand right on top of him. All right, I have a huge currency roll on here. That's nice. We'll get some added currency because we're going to see Scarabs and currency like we don't normally see, but this doesn't really impact the strat, like what I'm going for. It's just going to be extra loot we get. I expect an extra divine and or box from this map. All right, guys, we made it through the end. A lot of fun, this farm. We got 3 dump tabs full of cards, and 1 more remaining with a whole bunch of loot that I didn't use. I mean, some of this I obviously loot. I mean, I do obviously loot a lot of exalted orbs, chaos orbs, and stuff. And so maybe that's partially why it was offset. I overestimated how many currencies I'd need. I only ran out of 1 type. It was orbs of alchemy. They're not really worth much, but so we got some left over. That's nice. We got a Calandra's Touch and a Voltaxic Rift. A couple of tier 0s I would not have expected. Had a few big cards. But I got a couple of very rare card drops, but they unfortunately kind of the lesser value ones, not the higher value ones. No mirror card drops whatsoever. Extremely unlucky there. And so I would definitely say it was below average for sure, which makes me all the happier to be normalizing the results on this. So let's take a look at the dump tabs. Alright, here's everything left over. Again, Exalted Orbs is on the top of the list because I started with like 500 for rolling purposes. I was pretty frugal with them. Check this out, 72 Sanctuary maps. That's interesting, isn't it? How many Mausoleum maps? 86. Ah, so close to sustaining. So close. I really wanted to, but just not quite, not quite. Next up is the Cheater. So this is the most valuable card I dropped. Ironically, the same can be said for the last 100 map set. Yeah. 152 Fortunate cards. That card showed up a lot. Then we got, yeah, just a bunch of divine cards. Choking Guilt, extremely rare card. It's actually a lot more valuable than what this price is registering. Love Through Ice, another very rare card that's kind of worth a decent amount, but not nearly as much as some other cards of the same rarity tier. And 350 Chaotic Dispositions. That's really important because that's what we're going to normalize the results off of. And we'll see in the next section how that goes. Incidentally, the Wrath card is another way to kind of verify the efficacy of a farm by normalizing results. I did just check Chaotic Disposition and Wrath together. They come out fairly even on the weightings, so that's good to see. Some Scarabs, but yeah, not that much on the Scarabs. Definitely not a Scarab farm. Yeah, and then the Mausoleum maps, right. These are actually, I'll double check this, but all of these are 16.5, so they're actually worth a full divine each, not this. So we're missing, 100 divines up here. This number 458 is not much higher than the investment costs, but it's very misleading here because a lot of these cards are worth more than it says. Maybe a few are worth a little less, but I will be liquidating things, and we'll get to the bottom of everything, especially with normalized results. Okay, guys, we've liquidated everything, and we've done the normalization. There's a lot of math involved. Hopefully I got everything right. I think I did. It came out to about what I expected. So let's get started. Let me show you what we have. Just like normal, we'll take note that this number is a little bit higher, okay? And this is on account of liquidating a lot of things. It went both ways in this case. There were some cards that I've had on my loot filter that aren't really active on trade anymore. I mentioned this, like the Undaunted and the Wretched cards. Headhunter crashed, so I just kind of removed them, didn't even count them. There were a few cases where I liquidated things that came out lower than what it estimated here, but there were, of course, several things, the notorious cases of like, Valdos boxes are worth more than what the app says, and some of the cards too. And so that's why, I'll go ahead and just do a little bit of liquidating there. I did not liquidate like Sanctuary maps. These are worth quite a bit more than what this is saying. That's crazy. That just got shoved down. I didn't even realize this, but that's as low as 50C now. That did say 80C. Okay, well, massively handicapping myself actually with 72 sanctuary maps listed at 50C. So I'm not doing myself any favors there. But anyway, it takes so much time to like get all this stuff right. So we're just gonna leave it as it is. Put the work in. That number is up here. And I suppose we'll just start off down here. Okay, so there were 83 mausoleum maps that were originator, and so we added these in because I counted them as worth 1 divine apiece in the pricing, and so I'm counting them worth 1 divine apiece as I find them as well. And so that's just kind of bonus given off the top. All the investment costs here, total was 387.5, gross 557 div. That's including the 83 here, as well as this on top. Net profit 169.5 divines. That makes divines per map 1.7, divines per hour about 21.2. It's about an 8-hour farm. I was quite pleased with how quickly I was able to do the maps between 4 and 5 minutes per map. It might be a little over 5 minutes if it was a map that had a ton of diviners. It would be much less than 4 minutes if it had no diviners. And you see that on both ends, and so that was kind of the averages there. That's much faster than I've done in the past, and part of that's because I literally never had to like kite the boss. He always just got deleted. 2,000 cards, 1,000 cards, 100 cards, didn't matter. And you know, I've just done this strat enough now that it's just kind of streamlined how I did it, and the first map showcase exposed that exactly the way it went on every map. All right, and then we have the normalized results. You'll see the numbers much higher. So where did that come from? Where did these come from? Div per map 4.87 div per hour 60 divines. So how did I go from 21 divines per hour to 60 divines per hour? Well, that is the nature of a very high variance farm, and in this case, I mean, I obviously knew I got pretty unlucky. Anyone who knows anything about this farm knows that. I did drop a couple of very rare cards. There were 2 cards that I dropped in the top 20, which had to be accounted for here in this process. Basically, we removed the value of loot that I got from them. 48 divines worth. That was quad cheater and quad choking guilt. The cheater is worth a little bit, you know, 8 div a piece. Choking guilt was worth, actually it was worth more in game than what it said in the apps at 4 div. Both of those cards are very, very rare, as rare as the apothecary. And like Unrequited Love and some other cards like that, but it's worth way less. And so, you know, if I had dropped, you know, a different super rare card, I would have come out way higher than I did. Anyway, here's how this works. Chaotic Disposition, I dropped 350 of them. Okay, and the weightings, which we can see over here, I ended up averaging them between 4 different leagues because that gave us actually a better overall sample size. Just looking at 3.26, while it's true that GGG may have gone in the back end and adjusted a few of the weightings, it's pretty unlikely that took place for a wide spectrum of cards. And so as a sample size gets developed by the statistical collectors on Prohibited Library, where this website is derived from, all that data, it's just a much better sample size when we include an average out 4 of the last leagues rather than just going off 3.26. This is especially true with the very rare cards, which is what I had to go off of here. In fact, in some cases, the cards have like no sample size at all. And I just kind of went off of the Faustus gold price and then cross-referenced it with other cards that we have a better understanding about the weighting. I think, for example, like the Damnation versus the Fiend card, I believe had the exact same Faustus fee, and so it just kind of referenced it that way. I think there was like one other card I had to do that with. All right, so the weightings on average is the first number you see here. 57 for 7 years bad luck, 3.4 for choking guilt, Brothers Gift 47. And then this number is that weighting taken divided by the weighting of chaotic disposition. This is the sort of coefficient that is used here. And so in order to get to the results that I wanted to arrive at, I needed to take this coefficient number times the number of actual chaotic dispositions I have found, and take that times the value of the card, and that arrives at this number, 19.68, normalized value of 7 years bad luck that I should have dropped. that equals basically a little more than 1 7 years bad luck drop times 4 quad, you know. So if I had dropped 1 7 years bad luck in one diviner's box across 100 maps, I would have come out with pretty average RNG on that. It's actually surprising to me that it didn't happen in this 100 map set, but that's just 1 out of 20 card. That is the 20th most valuable card. And so this gets a lot harder to estimate as we go in deeper on this, but I did best I could. Choking Guild is the next one on the list. It's a card that is much more rare, which is one I found, and much less valuable, so the normalized value is way lower, right? Well, I did actually find that card. So this card got subtracted out, and then I give myself the normalized amount. Okay, again, to remind you, I've subtracted 48 divines because that was the value of 4 cheaters plus 4 choking guilds. And I returned this number here. For the sake of saving time for the video, you can check the Twitch VOD, which is linked down below if you want to see how this is all done. And I did all these calculations in front of everybody. But at any rate, here's, you know, all of those numbers. They are the number on the far right. So, it's, you know, I did exactly what I just mentioned to you with 7 years bad luck for the following 20 cards. The highest card on the list was Unrequited Love, which happens to be the one that I scried. It's very unfortunate that I didn't drop that card. If I had simply dropped that card times 4 and no other card, I would have gotten pretty close to the normalized results, just to give you some sense. That's how crazy valuable that card is. I think the Immortal, the Immortal and Unrequited Love stood out as the top 2 cards by a pretty significant margin. Should be understandable why. Those are mirror cards. The weighting on the House of Mirrors seems to be very low, so I don't know. 1.4 actually seems kind of conservative to me. But anyway, I would have expected that number to be the highest, perhaps. Not the case. So the grand total number is 365 minus the 48 to subtract the cards that I got. And this was the net normalized increase in value that I should expect from, over time, the top 20 cards in play for this farm. So all I did is I took that number plus the net profit that I had, because that already, you know, took into account removing the other top 20 cards that I dropped. And that's what gave me a whole bunch more currency to factor into normalized results. So there you go. That's how the normalized results arrived where they did. And again, if you want to check my math on that, you can. It was a lot of math. I'm not the greatest at math. There is a chance that I got something wrong on this calculation. And for sure, the weightings across all this stuff here are not 100% accurate, okay? But it's the best data we have. I couldn't have really gone any deeper down the rabbit hole than I did to try to get a most accurate picture. I really didn't like how the numbers came out so poor the last time I did this farm, and I was conscientious about it happening again. Incidentally, it did happen again. And, you know, at the same time, I drop a bunch of, you know, apothecaries behind the scenes that never get accounted for when I'm actually, you know, doing this test for real. And so to remove that RNG factor, that's why, you know, we did all this. And now we can relax and have a little more fun by corrupting a few things. I have things set up nicely to just kind of reveal some of the uniques I dropped. This was not a uniques farm. I was surprised I dropped 2 tier 0s. But at any rate, yeah, okay, this one here too. But this actually I'll be selling this, not dusting it. So the bottom here is a list of things I will dust. In the middle are things I will try to sell. There was no real value in bases. This the closest thing I got was 26% velour gloves. Not really worth anything, so we couldn't count anything up there. Calander's Touch I'll try to sell. And then at the top here we have corrupted things. And then I'll dust these if they hit, but otherwise, you know, we'll check for maybe a potential Giga Corruption. No Wrath effect, huh? Anger effect. Oh no, anger effect. Anger effect isn't anything, is it? Oof. Imagine if that was Wrath effect. It would have been worth many divines. Okay. Missed on that. I'll do the stacked decks now, I guess. Get my Unrequited Love the hard way. Maybe. Those all scale multiplicatively. The monster modifiers is more significant, though. Alright, well, I didn't get any good cards. Okay. Let me give you my final thoughts on this. Very fun strategy. I could see it being really frustrating for anyone who struggles with, the super tanky boss. Rolling boxes has never been easier, so that's a huge +1 for this farm, this league in particular. Suggest people give it a try, especially if you're running Warden, if you want to make a Warden. It really doesn't have a lot to do with like bow character or whatever. This Oath of Winter is just so phenomenally good. But actually, we're very lucky that the Mausoleum boss is so easy that, you can, if you're just like some kind of high DPS in-game character, you can probably just DPS them down easily anyway, up to however many hundreds and hundreds of cards. Now, it's a lot of fun with the anticipation right before you kill the boss. You can see it in the highlights. Always some added excitement right before that boss blows up. You see all the cards, and sometimes we're let down by dropping just 4 fortunate cards, but sometimes we'll see 4 cheater cards, and that's definitely a lot more exciting. And sometimes we'll see 4 of a card that is way better than anything I dropped. So I'm personally a little bit let down by the results I got here. Definitely, especially after checking normalized results, I realized I got shafted pretty hard, but that just makes me all the happier that I went through that process to give you guys more accurate results. So the number in the title of the video is most definitely going to reflect more closely to what that normalized number is. And I've certainly had farming sessions where I got over 60 div an hour doing this, of course. Drop 1 apothecary quad, you're making crazy currency for that day automatically. Anybody drops 4 apothecaries in one day is making a lot of currency, of course. So that happened quite a few times this league, and I've done not quite 1,000 of these maps. Sometimes it was lower investment, sometimes it was middle, sometimes it was a higher end like this. These maps can get a little difficult. I wasn't in too much jeopardy of bricking any maps. I had one psychotically hard map that I put in there, like minus max penetration, monster damage, and area of effect. So opening a box was super dangerous. There was like one map that was a little crazy, but we got through every single map, didn't have too much trouble. Yeah, so give this strat a try if you want. Empyrean Gaming recommended it in his video. He made results that were, I don't know, somewhat similar to mine, but I do think this variation is a superior variation, particularly with the box farming side. The one thing that I can say with this strat that definitely appealed to me was the combination of cartographer and diviner box farming. Just had a video on YouTube that went into this in more detail. I was quite surprised at how good that combo is and how little of a sacrifice has to be made, and the efficacy of pilfering divination card farming to get a whole bunch of extra maps. And in this day and age, trying to buy these Mausoleum 16.5s in bulk is looks to be the stuff of nightmares, actually. Like, there's just not hardly any supply at all. So I could either turn around and run 83 more of these maps and just, wind them down to 0, maybe buy a few to offset not quite 100% self-sustaining, or I could just sell these to you guys for an absolute crazy inflated profit, which I might do instead. As I'm more interested in getting back into mirror farming, some wildwood fishing stuff. We're going to do some more rogue exile stuff, maybe some more alva. Actually, yeah, I do really want to do some wildwood fishing alva type stuff, so probably expect a video like that. We're not quite done with the league. Got a few more things up my sleeve. The build is basically done. I do need to come out with a build showcase video, ultimately. I think I might farm up an Awakened Enlightened level 5 before that. There's some a tiny little thing I can add in there if I do that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, stay tuned for an upcoming video, and we'll see if we can get some more crazy moments to happen like we've already had this week. Fingers crossed. I'll see you guys in the next video.